It's so cold today, I'm considering I should just do my whole video, just sort of hidden in my hood here. I think this is a good look. Hello, my name is Kirsty and welcome to Upside Down Books. Today I'm going to be doing another book review because that is what life is about. I'm really excited to share this book that I'm going to talk to you about, The Bells by Dhonielle Clayton, because it has made my all-time favourites list for this year, 2018, and that is a big thing, alright? So, I recently read/listened to the audiobook version of The Bells by Dhonielle Clayton, and this is a brilliant book that came out this year, and I think everybody should be reading it because it's honestly so much fun. So let's start with some details about the book first. The Bells was published on the 6th of February this year, so 2018. So it's a relatively new book, and I've seen quite a lot of hype around the time when it first came out, although I'm not hearing so much about it now. In its hardback format, it's about 440 pages long, but in the audiobook format that I listened to, it is 12 hours and 56 minutes. The book itself was published by Disney Hyperion, and the audiobook, I believe, was published by Orion Publishing Group. It falls into the genre of fantasy, specifically YA category, and it's got very much the dystopian vibes to it, so take that as you will. Over on Goodreads, it has an average of 3.91 stars out of 5, which is a pretty decent average rating, although it's slightly lower than what I think it should have. And that comes from 6,837 individual ratings from the users. Personally, I rated it 5 out of 5 stars, and as I said, it has gone on to my all-time favourite list. And the narrator for the audiobook version is a British narrator called Rosie Jones. Just a little bit about Dhonielle that I looked up myself. Dhonielle is an American author who lives in New York City but has done a lot of travelling. When I looked her up on Goodreads to see if she was a debut author or not, she is not, and she has participated in the anthology of A Tyranny of Petticoats in the second book, and she's also done another series which I personally haven't read myself. She is 35 years old and has lived in places such as London, Paris, Japan, and Bermuda. And I believe I did read something on her blog, her little personal website, about her wanting to open up a restaurant or a cafe in Edinburgh, but I was a bit confused by the time I got to that point, so we'll just move on from there. So now let's discuss the book itself. The plot of the book is very, very interesting. It centres around this world where beauty is no longer. 6 girls every generation called the Bells are born, and they have magical abilities called the Arcana, which they use to create beauty in other people. It's sort of like this weird physical manipulation ability, which is super, super cool, and I really liked it. I assume that the reason given, which is like this mythological retelling of the past, where the god who was in a relationship with the goddess of beauty got jealous because she spent too much time with the daughters that she created, so he made mankind ugly. Something along those lines is the story that we are given. So everyone else except for the Bells is born with grey skin, red coloured eyes, straw dead hair, and they're just ugly, and they hate their appearances. So the Bells are used to be in different locations within the kingdom, starting with the palace and other tea houses, where people go and pay to become beautiful again. It's a physical manipulation which actually hurts, and I really liked the realistic, like, grunginess of this story. These beautiful, perfect, all show and sparkle girls who are literally manipulating, like, your bone features, and they have to, like, drug up their patience because it's, like, super painful. I really like that realistic element. At the start of the book, the girls are coming out from their school, they've just come of age. They will be presented to the court through a little show of their abilities, and then they will be chosen which location they will be given. They're all competing to be the favourite because the favourite resides in the palace, and that means they get to deal with the actual royal family, and it's just like super cool and like what everyone wants. But as we slowly discover through our main character Camellia, there is a whole lot more to this world than we were anticipating. The sort of levels of power that are integrated into it and the way that the beauty world is controlled is so much more complicated than it seems at first glance, and there are so many other things that are sort of happening in the background. So we have this very sweet, innocent Camellia out in the world trying to do her best and live up to her mother's image, who was obviously a belle as well, and she's kind of realising that this world is not a nice place to be in at all. So, moving on from the plot, I wanted to just bring out a few points as to why I think this is really different and unique to any other YA dystopian fantasy novel I've read before. The two sort of comparisons I've been drawing between my mind are Uglies by Scott Westerfeld and The Grishaverse by Leigh Bardugo. Uglies is probably a fairly obvious comparison. A few people bring it up because that is a world where it is utopian and people at a certain age get a makeover and become perfect and they choose their look. However, that is very much so science fiction-y. I studied it at school and I just have sort of connotations with that book and don't like it. don't want to compare it to that one. The tailoring aspects in the Grishaverse, if you've read it, where some people have this magical power where they can make people look differently, is probably quite a cool comparison. However, it's still really quite different to that. What I really liked was the princessy feel of this story and how these girls are just the epitome of beauty. But the reality of how the changes happen, the fact that it's not magic, it's arcana, which is basically this sort of blood magic, but not magic. Like, Dhonielle Clayton's been very specific in never calling it magic, and it's more just this sort of extra ability these girls have. It's kind of hard to explain without reading the book, but the way that this book comes across is just really unique. The world is so much more deeply constructed than a lot of the other ones. I mean, the Grishaverse is pretty expansive, but that's beside the point. I just really love how involved the politics is and all the different levels. Like, if this was a picture book, I feel like it'd be one of those with the little things where you could, like, open up, you flip over the picture and there's something else underneath it. That's the weirdest comparison ever, but that's how I feel like this book is. My basic point with this is saying, please don't write this off as a same book with the YA category, which I feel like is sort of happening to it. It's just sort of crescendoed in its wave when it came out, and then no one's talking about it, and this book is bloody brilliant. Like, you need to read this book, give it a go, and I bet you a hot chocolate that you won't be able to put it down. Moving on to the characters. There is the most enormous range of characters in this book. We have Camellia, who is one of the sisters, as the Bells call themselves, and then we have the other 5 of her sisters, who are all very unique and individual and have their own personalities and really bring lots to the story. But aside from that, we have their tutor, we have the people in the castle, we have her personal guard, we have her older sisters, which are the generation they're replacing, and some servants as well have some pretty key roles. It's really quite overwhelming how many important characters there are in this book, and I love it because it just brings that real depthy layer to it. It's like when you're reading Game of Thrones and you're like, oh, there's just so much content here. But I loved Camellia, and that is the good and main point to make here. She's a little bit slow off the bat to kind of realise what's happening, but I think from the reader's perspective, we're like, obviously something's going to go wrong, we're waiting for it. But from Camellia's perspective, she's been taught that the world is all roses and rainbows and candy floss, and she's just taking a while to accept that, no, there's a little bit more going on here. It was really fun exploring from that perspective as she discovers other things about how the bells are being used and the actual number of bells that are out in the world and what motivations characters like Sophia actually have. Other notable characters I will mention is Ivy, who acts as Camellia's older sister through the main part of this book. I thought she was really cool and I'd love to know more about her. I loved Bree, who was her servant. She was just fantastic, and if I don't find out what happens to her in book 2, I will have a tantrum. And I really liked Remy as well, but I was on the fence about him for the entire time, and he's Camellia's bodyguard. Sophia will give me nightmares. She was such an evil character, and I think she was quite an unexpected presence in this book. You kind of have that sort of like Kira Cass's The Selection airy-fairy feel. You're expecting just better done, not Selection. I shouldn't have even brought that up. But the point is, you're going in with that sort of real airy-fairy feel to it. But characters like Sophia are really bringing this down, and it's like, there is a serious undertone of evil going throughout this book, and the limits that Sophia will go to get what she wants are just unbelievable. The audiobook experience in itself was amazing. I loved it. It was just, I so enjoyed it. We had a British narrator called Rosie Jones, as I said, and she did a fantastic job in covering all of the characters that are in the book. She does an amazing range of British accents throughout the whole book as well, so every character has different voices, and for the most part she did a really good job of holding them up. But I did think at times the difference between Amber and Camille's voices got a little bit muddled. But other than that, it was pretty damn good. In fact, I don't really have any other comments to say about it. I thoroughly enjoyed going through the audiobook experience of this. I'd love to read it though, because I wanted to read it faster than I could speed up the audiobook because it's so addictive. So that brings us basically to my final thoughts on the whole book itself. The book finished on an almighty cliffhanger, and my only complaint overall would be that I wished a few more things had been resolved. We're left with quite a few open endings at the end, but it wasn't a deterrent. I'm just super excited to see how this all wraps up. So I'm really excited to see how much more she expands on the world in the second book. But I just loved it. It all made perfect sense. It had a wonderful flow throughout, and yeah, just a brilliant book that I literally just can't stop raving about, so I really hope more people read it. So with all of that being said, I'd love to know if any of you have read the book or listened to the book or are planning on reading it, because I so want you to read it and I so want to discuss with someone their thoughts on the book. I'm definitely sitting on the side of the fence that's like hardcore fangirling right now. I cannot wait to continue the series. So that is all I have to say, so let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and I will see you in my next video. Goodbye!